Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and with the indicative votes in Parliament today, the government are seeking to jam as many options in as possible to maximise the chances of there being either nothing with a majority or at least nothing possible with a majority, like legally possible. So options such as the demonstrably impossible Malthouse Compromise, which calls for us to basically have everything in the agreed withdrawal terms, but not the backstop. That seems to be in there. There are bound to be other fancy suggestions too. I'll go over them in a minute. And although MPs vote for all the ones they consider acceptable, I'd still worry that some will try and game the system. So if we have a look at what is available for MPs to vote for very shortly, there's a no-deal Brexit, the Common Market 2.0 as it's been called, where we join the European Economic Area and negotiate a temporary customs union until alternative arrangements are found. We know that there's no such thing. There could be in the far future. The EFTA, EEA, so that's like the single market, but we don't have the customs union. But of course, we still have to be able to replace the backstop with something which we don't have anything to replace it with. So that's just stupid. A customs union, so that we basically have a permanent customs union with the EU, and that would allow for us to facilitate the Good Friday Agreement, as well as having other benefits as well, of course. There's Labour's alternative plan, which is a customs union with the EU and close alignment, as they call it, with the single market. But as we all know, you're either in the single market or you are not. That's put forward by Jeremy Corbyn. Revoking Article 50, we know what that means. A confirmatory public vote, so Parliament can't ratify anything. Whatever Parliament comes up with has to go to the people. So that's that one. And then there's the Malthouse plan that I talked about there. Even though it's called Plan B, it's very like Plan A. It's still having everything apart from the backstop. So, if I were an MP, what would I be voting for? Let's do some pretending and let's say I have a say in it. So, rather than go through each individual one, because that could take some time, I'll just talk in general terms. I'd certainly vote for any option that puts the terms of the withdrawal, including a remain option, to the people. So I'd even vote for options I'm not in favour of, quite frankly, as long as they're legal, as long as it would only be implemented on a suitable second referendum. So that would include the Kyle Wilson amendment, for example, which calls for support for May's withdrawal agreement on the proviso that people make the decision. But, and that's what's gone up there, that Margaret Beckett's pushing that. So what about the options that I'm not wild about, but I could grudgingly support? Because that's what this is about. It's not about everyone putting down their first choice. Everyone knows there is no majority for everyone's first choice. So it's a case of going, right, well, this is what I really want. But actually, if it came to it in the name of compromise, because we've got to do something, I'd accept this. So let's make no bones about it. Not only am I a fervent supporter of the EU for economic benefits, I also believe in the political aims. As should have been obvious from my video on Scotland this week, I am opposed to nationalism and in favour of greater harmony between neighbouring nations. Yes, there are things that I would change. There are things. And it's not like the EU is closed to reform. It's reformed several times already. Quite frankly, it has reformed itself much more than the UK has in any sort of time frame. And it's always open to further reforms. So running away from a bad situation is what losers do. Winners change their circumstances. So in addition to my personal benefits on this, the clear evidence is that a majority of people in the UK now want to remain. Brexiteers also believe this, which is why they are objecting to another referendum. If a majority still wanted to leave, they'd be the first calling for a referendum to show that the Leave support has actually increased, as they all try to claim. But it hasn't, and they know it. This is why they come out with the most outrageous threats to try and scare people into avoiding another referendum, which, at least in Parliament, seems to be working. And a third reason why I'm in favour of another referendum is because for any outcome to occur at all, now requires MPs to change their mind. MPs have voted against May's withdrawal agreement. MPs have voted against no deal. MPs have voted against every other option, including alternative deals and a second referendum. There is literally no possible outcome to Brexit that Parliament hasn't already voted down at least once. But there has to be some sort of outcome to the process, so that basically means that some MPs are going to have to change their mind. So if MPs can change their mind on something that hasn't changed, where circumstances haven't changed, Why can't the people change their mind in a scenario that has? Actually, I do have a fourth reason for supporting a people's vote, but it's a bit cheeky. Despite the millions people march and the millions signing the petition, in stark contrast to the few dozen who marched for Brexit and a few 100,000 who signed for it, Leave supporters keep saying that they don't need to do those things because they've already won. That's why Farage didn't get anyone to follow him. That's why there's hardly anyone signed the petition compared to the revoke Article 51. That's why their numbers are so piss poor when compared to Remain groups. Well, logic would therefore dictate that if another people's vote was formed and was going to go ahead, that they'd have no longer won and would have no excuses for not marching to prove their point. That would be hilarious to see. But like I said, there has to be an outcome of some description, and if a majority of MPs will not support a people's vote, then my next priority is an acceptable outcome outside of the EU. If MPs are prepared to spit on the electorate that have worked so hard to make their voices known, the least I would be able to do is make sure that at least the UK complies with its legal obligations regarding Ireland. Now, to this end, I'd vote for any option that would guarantee compliance with the Northern Ireland Act, which is what implements the Good Friday Agreement in the UK. This would certainly mean options that include a comprehensive customs union, allowing for free movement between the UK and the EU, and preferably access to the single market. Yes, this is staying in the EU in all respects except that we don't get a say on the rules we'd now have to follow. But that's only because my preferred options may not be supported. So I would vote for those options as acceptable. What I would absolutely not vote for are options which break our own laws as well as failing to meet our international obligations. I'd also avoid any options which unfairly make life difficult for ourselves or our neighbours and economic and political partners. Would I vote to revoke Article 50? This is most certainly not my preferred option at all. However, I would vote for it, safe in the knowledge that it would be unlikely to get a majority and would certainly not get the largest majority, just to help bung it up into realistic terms. Although it ticks the box of avoiding Brexit, it doesn't tick the box of giving the people a final say, which is what is so important. Nor would it help heal divisions in the country as a result. So what about Theresa May's deal? Obviously that's not one of the ones tonight, but would I vote for that in theory if it were one of the ones attached, but without a referendum? No, I wouldn't. Not just because it's become so divisive now, or that it could represent a Tory victory if it does go through, which would certainly cross my mind if I were, because I'd only be a Labour MP if I was going to be an MP, but because it doesn't commit us to a close relationship with our neighbours, it does safeguard the Good Friday Agreement at least, but nothing else. Even if the political declaration were amended to include a commitment to a customs union, it wouldn't help as the political declaration is not binding. A cretinous government negotiating the next stages can abandon any or all of it. The only document in the agreement worth anything is the legally binding section of it. And even then I'm not convinced. After all, the government have supported illegal options for Brexit already, and they are still doing so. What makes me think that they wouldn't later break the legally binding agreement if I vote it through? Don't know. Now, if I could have the confidence that any possible government would act in good faith and for the benefit of the country, then I would agree to vote for her deal because it does allow for a useful relationship. But if we had such a government now, it wouldn't be necessary because they'd already be putting it to the people. The bottom line is that this government have barely acted in good faith at all on anything. They lied about increasing the NHS budget when they'd actually reduced it. They lied about unemployment figures to mask the worsening employment situation. They lied about making everyone better off on universal credit when it's already killed some people and plunged many others into abject poverty. And they've lied about Brexit being the will of the people. They've lied about their red lines being in the interests of business, when businesses have said the opposite, either forcefully in CBI and Chamber of Commerce statements or with their feet by relocating overseas. They said they respect the result of the illegal referendum, which is to say that the executive of our legislature respects breaches of our own laws. Now, I accept that they aren't the only party to have taken that line for party political purposes, but the point is that I can't trust a government to maintain legal obligations, so I'd only vote for an outcome that doesn't leave room for a corrupt government to manoeuvre. It should be obvious, but for the sake of completeness, I'll say that I'd certainly not vote for a no-deal Brexit. Brexiteers have somehow convinced a lot of people, when you look at polls, that May's deal is actually worse than a no deal. But the deal is the worst of all possible outcomes. Frankly, a tsunami coming and washing Britain away under the waves is a better prospect than a complete break with the EU. So that's how I would vote. We'll have to wait and see how the clowns who actually do get to decide vote. I'll be reporting on Prime Minister's questions and Theresa May's statement, which should be happening very soon later on tonight as well. So it's going to be a busy day, but I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.